As you see in the previous image, that is the style we'll be making, you see that on the hip side it has a kind of curve on this part, on the with the separate colored one. It has a kind of curve on the hip side and on the bust area. So what we'll be doing, if we want to make that kind of it's that, but it's just that it's a kind of manipulated that. It's not like the other kind of that we do. So just keep watching and you see how we make that manipulation. See, so and you see that the upper part is a sweetheart neck. So when bringing out your basic bodies, you minus 4. I minus 4. The person's shoulder line is 14, so dividing it by 2, I have 7 inches. That is my armhole line. This one now is my armhole line or upper chest line. This is my bust line. I used 9 inches. Then my under bust, my waistline, and my hip line. So after bringing out your basic measurements this way, what you'll be doing is to determine your bust pan or your nipple to nipple measurement. How do you get that? To get your nipple to nipple measurement, you divide your bust measurement by 8. When you divide your bust measurement by 8, any answer you have, you minus 1 inches from it, 1 inch from it. In our own case, our bust measurement is 34. When you divide 34 by 8, it gives you 4.25. When you minus 1 inch from it, your answer will become 3.25. But because we'll be using an allowance to join it together again, we will use 4 inches as the normal basic measure, the dart line. So all you have to do is to mark the 4 down till your hip line this way. You mark it. So you can see that I've connected the lines. This case will not be having an under bust that will curve inside. We'll just use the normal princess dart. So after you might have connect your lines like this, you come to your bust point and mark 2 inches to the front. That is, now you remember you use 4 inches as your dart line. You add 2 inches extra to it to become 6 inches. So you mark 6 inches here this way on your bust point. Then you come to your hip line and also mark 2 inches. After doing this, you connect this one like a kind of curve, as if you are curving a hip. You curve it down like this. So you first curve this one, curve it to your dart line on this part, on the under bust. You can see how I curve it. You curve it like this. Then you continue. You see that you now come to your waistline. When you come to your waistline, you curve it this way. You see how I curve it? So this is how you are going to curve it, and you take it to your full length measurement. Remember, this dart line will come to the, because of the kind of style, this dart line is going to come down to the full length of your dress. So you continue with your 4 inches measurement. You connect it to this one on the hip line. So let me connect it. So you see that I've connected that line down to the full length. So what you will do on this hip line that you connect this curved line to, you are not just going to bring it to this that leg here. You will come down from your hip line down with 2 inches, then you connect it to that hip with 2 inches and connect it down. Make sure your lines are not pointed. So this is how you are going to curve it. This is how you are going to curve it. So after bringing, since you are bringing out your measurements this way, you see that you have that, we have already that curved line we are looking for. We have already got we have get it. Now we've got it. So you bring out your normal measurement. That is your normal basic measurements. Our bust measurement is 34. Dividing it by 4 will give us 8.5 plus 3 inches for seam allowance. I like using 3 inches for seam allowance so that to avoid the mistakes, because we are also going to be joining this part too. This part will be joining it to the other fabric. Our under bust measurement is 27. Divide by 4 is 6.75. We just reuse 7 plus 3 inches for seam allowance. It becomes 10. Our waistline is 31. Divide by 4 is 7.5 plus 3 inches, we have 10.5. Then you come to your hip line. Our hip line, we have 37 inches. Divide 37 inches by 4, we have 9.25. We add 3 inches for seam allowance. So if you want to get your pencil on the down of your dress, you minus whatever you have on your hip measurement. You minus 2 inches from it. So here we have about 13 inches as our hip measurement. So minus 2 inches from that 13. That is our, to make it pence at the down. So minus about 2 inches from it, we have 11. So we connect our lines. So as you can see, you see that our measurement is ready, and you can see that the dress is ready already. So the next thing we need is our neck depth. Each time you are measuring a customer or taking a person's measurement, make sure you take the person's neck depth to avoid the neck is too high or the neck is too low. So make sure each time you are taking measurement, you always measure the person's neck depth. So in this case, the person's neck depth is 6.5, and you remember we minus 4 inches from the main cloth. So you place your tape this way, minusing the 4 inches, then you bring out the 6.5. but because we'll be using half an inch to sew it, we'll make it 6 inches, so that after sewing it, it becomes that 6.5 exactly. So use 6.5 here, and it's a sweetheart neckline. This is the dart line. We'll add 2 inches to it, 1 inch for seam allowance, 1 inch that will be placing our hand. So you connect your neckline this way. So this is how it looks like. Then you make your just land your armhole like this. Don't make it just straight. Don't just cut your armhole straight. Make it a kind of curve a little bit. Then after bringing out your measurement like this, cross check your measurements to make sure they are equal and cut. So as you can see, you see that I've trimmed the paper already. The next thing we'll be doing is to bring out this dart line that we measured. So watch me and see the way I will cut it. When you are cutting, make sure it's not pointed. So you see how it looks like. Let me open. Wow, look at how beautiful it looks. So after sewing it, this is how it's going to look like. You see, after sewing it, this is how it's going to be. So when you are sewing, just sew along this line the way you normally sew your it's just the way you sew your princess dart, but just that this time this one is just kind of curvy on this part. That's just it. So let's get our fabric and cut it with our fabric. So the fabric I'm working with is doll face. I'm working with doll face and ankara. So the doll face will be the one that will be at the center, and the ankara will round the back and the two sides of the front. So after placing your pattern paper on the fabric this way, make sure you pin yours so that it will not shift. You cut this way. So as you can see, this is the center piece that I just cut out. So you can see how it looks on the fabric. This is how it's going to look. So after sewing it, you get your full achievement. So this is, let's cut the side of it. So this is the side. We'll be trimming it out just the same way we did at the front side. In my own case, I decided to fold the fabric into two so that I will achieve the two sides the same time, so that I will not be cutting it one. But if you know you will not be able to do yours that way, you can decide to cut your own one. You also cut from this side. So this is how it's going to look like at the end of it. So when you are sewing, sew it this way, just sew the lines like that, and sew it. After sewing, make sure you iron to make sure it's flat before cutting your lining out. So let's get to the back part. The back is not going to be this way, it's just the front that will have this front pattern like this, just the front. The back is going to be normal. So let's cut the back part. On the back line, I fold it into two and I minus 1.5 inch for my seam allowance. Remember, I minus 4 inches for the up, because it's an off shoulder, remember. So this 4 inch will get our armhole depth line, our bust line, then to bring out our dart line measurement. So from our, you connect your dart line this way. You mark, you come down, just mark 1 inch on the waistline, that is the half length, 1 inch here and 1 inch here, then connect them all. Then you bring out your normal measurement. On the bust line, we have 8.5 plus 3 inches. We have about 8.5 plus 3 inches is about 11.5 inches. Then our waistline, we have 7.5 plus 5 inches, because we minus 2 inches from this center place, so we'll be replacing it back. Then you connect this way. So on the neck side, we'll be using 6 inches for the neck depth. This one is just going to be round. This is our back fabric. So after this, we will just sew it down. Let's move over to the skirt part. On this part, we are going to be minusing the half length we removed before, which is, we use 17 inches. So just place your 17 on the edge part this way, then bring out your full length measurement. Our full length is 55. I added 2 inches allowance to it, so it becomes 57. So you just mark it this way and bring out your hip line like this. The back is going to have a tearing, and the kind of tearing it's going to have is not that normal kind of tearing that we normally have. This tearing is an overlapping tearing, so we'll be adding the allowance to it, but it's like the wideness is not up to, so I'll just cut it later on and fix it to it. So on the hip line, our hip measurement is 9.5 plus 3 inches for seam allowance. So our dart line is 4 inches. Remember, our dart line is up to the down part. We use the dart line to the down part. And connect. Remember, we we removed 2 inches from the waistline of the back. So on this part we're going to use that 2 inches on the waist part, that is one up here, one on this side. Then we'll connect it. We'll take 2 inches upward from the hip line this way, and you connect. And cut. This is the down part of it. So I've finished cutting it. This is how it's going to look like. Remember, I'll be adding about 8 inches to from down to somewhere here. That is the new line, up above the hip, the new line, so that it will overlap each other like this on the tearing part, so that the tearing will not be showing. So that is how I'm going to do it. If you want to know how to cut that overlapping tearing, you can notify me, so I'll create a detailed video on how to do it. So that is the end of the video for now.